so talking a little bit about gear and packing the Itiwit X500 StrandFit kayak. So basically, there isn't a huge amount of space in the X500, but there is enough actually to even go expedition paddling. I've done that a couple of times. But you have to really pack efficiently. It's kind of a game of Tetris, I usually say. And today I am here with my friend Don-Erik, who's actually visiting Stockholm.
Yeah,
hey.
This will be really fun to paddle here in Vaxholm. First time in paddling Vaxholm.
Excellent. So yeah, so we're out paddling and exploring, and that means we have two X500s right now. And we're just finishing up the last packing, so I thought I'd say a few words about how I do that. So first of all, here I usually, since I travel by public transport a lot, or even if there's a car, like today we came here by car, you never know if you, for some reason, you have to stop somewhere where that you didn't plan, and you have to bring the kayak back, maybe by taxi or public transport or whatever. So whenever I can, I try to bring the bag as well. So that first of all obviously takes some space. All right, so first of all, folding in the actual carry backpack. If I have a lot of water and stuff that weighs a lot, I try to normally actually pack that close to the cockpit for better weight distribution across the kayak. So heavier stuff here, but in this case we're not going out for an extreme paddle, so there's not a lot of gear. Otherwise I would have like a water container here or whatever is heavy weight. Anyway, obviously the rest of the gear needs to be in Drybags. You don't have a completely waterproof compartment here. It's absolutely not waterproof, in fact, because obviously it's open between the seat and the rear and the front compartment here. I mean, if you get water into the kayak, if you were to capsize, or you just have some water pouring in from your boots or whatever, you know, things are gonna get wet here. So whatever you want to remain dry should be in Drybags. So what I usually do is, this is my typical setup. So I usually have at least two dry bags with standard content. So the yellow dry bag I'm using here, this is actually the Itiwit 10-liter dry bag. This is something I use for my spare clothes, which you should always have, unless it's an extremely hot day. So now that it's a little bit colder, it's in October, you need to have that change of clothes in case, well, you get wet somehow. So always that for safety. And that goes nicely into the kayak over there. And then I have this other dry bag. Typically in my orange dry bag I tend to have some safety gear and you know, some miscellaneous stuff that I need on top of that. So with these together and the stuff that I actually have on the kayak, that usually is my standard setup. So packing these in here works quite nicely. So basically you can do this in a number of ways, but what you want to ensure that you do is that whatever you need most urgently or most easily, if you're on a break on an island or on land somewhere, or if you need to really get something out more quickly, like here I have my first aid kit and whatever, then you want to have that easily accessible. So that should be available easily through the hatch here. In this case I could have packed these in those two, but I also have a little bit of snacks and food and stuff, so that goes into this dry bag, so this fits nicely here as well. Then in this case I have a dry bag with a few items that I need during the paddle, so that's actually right here. And finally, in this case I'm not actually gonna bring this for this paddle, but this is gear I have along for other paddle trips. And this is more gear. It could be if you're camping, it could be a number of dry bags, like you would have to have your tent and your sleeping bag and whatever. And then you should also be making use of the packing space in front of the kayak. So if we go here, if you actually open up the footrests here, there's actually a lot of space that you can use in front of the kayak. Just making sure that, well, in this case I'll open it up completely so I can do this more easily. So you have a lot of packing space in front of the kayak. Just make sure that you don't have extremely heavy stuff over there. So with a number of dry bags over there and the packing space that you have in the back, you can come a long way. But frankly, if you're actually doing, you know, a full expedition, for me at least, it's difficult if you have to bring the bag along. So if I'm out in the archipelago, for example, and I know that, you know, I'm not gonna actually be able to carry my kayak anywhere because it's just islands out there, then my backpack would probably stay in a car on land. But then with all the stuff you need, camping gear, tent, your field kitchen, if you will, whatever equipment you need, that's a lot of stuff. So in that case, I also, on top of the deck here, use a deck bag of some sort. I tend to use the Itiwit 30 liter or 20 liter deck bag. That works nicely as well on top of the deck actually. And because the Itiwit X500 second version, in my opinion, is stable, especially when it's packed with a lot of gear, I haven't had an issue with the deck bag being on top of the kayak. Otherwise, you don't want to be changing the center of gravity too much, and you don't want the wind capture of whatever is on top of the kayak. But it has worked well for me. So that's basically what I do.
For how many days have you been camping with this kayak?
With the Itiwit X500? Yeah, good question. So I've been on a number of trips in the archipelago sea kayaking with this, together with sea kayaks. Obviously it's easier to pack with a sea kayak that has more space. But with this, the maximum I've done is 4 days.
So 4 days with tent?
Yeah, with the tent and in the outermost archipelagos, you really have to have all of your backup gear, clothing, you know,
everything for 4 days.
Exactly, and water, no less. I mean, the water takes it's a lot of weight and it takes a lot of space.
So you can do like a 4 or 5 days expedition with this board kayak without problem.
Yes, but I wouldn't say that it's easy doing that. Because at that point, even with the deck bag, I had to use every minimal piece of space that that was available. And the last thing is, you actually have to get the pump in here as well. So unless you strap it to the outside, it also fits in here. If you're careful, you can actually place it inside the kayak. Just be careful so you don't. So that you don't push the outer elements here too much. There is actually space, as you can see, for the pump.
And you have some space left.
Yes, but as you were saying, in case of a full expedition with all of the bags that need to go in here, I mean, there was no space whatsoever. And at that point, frankly, I've actually used a smaller pump to bring with me. In this case, because I have a Kokopelli kayak, I have a much tinier pump, which I'll show separately here, and that also helps. So anything really that can minimize the amount of space that you need to take up. I mean, think about your gear. Things that you don't need, leave them at home. Things that you do need, try to bring as small versions of them as possible, and then pack efficiently, again balancing the gear across the kayak so that you have weight distributed not too far out on either side. And finally, there's of course a little bit of gear on top of the kayak as well.
What will happen if I pack too much in the front or in the back?
Yeah, that would basically change the characteristics of the kayak. So if you're being hit by wind and waves and such, the kayak will behave differently if you have weight distributed here and there. You want that to somehow be aligned with yourself, more or less.
Yeah, so close.
Yeah.
As the more heavy the things are, the closer it will be to your.
I would say so, unless you're balancing perfectly on both sides. What you don't want anyway is an uneven distribution, where it's really heavy on one side, where very light on the other side. And in this case, because I am using the deck bag, there's going to be a lot of weight here, even if I try to minimize the weight of whatever I put here. So then, you know, the weight here kind of offsets that. So I have something close here, even if it's on top, which is not optimal, but it works. And then here.
Is it possible to have a dry bag on top there, in the back?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to, absolutely, and if you really needed to, you're right. You could use the straps here.
Yes.
And using straps, you could actually get a larger bag here as well. But because you have to get into your stuff here, etc., you know, I prefer not to do that, although it's possible. And the other thing is, if you were to try a cowboy rescue, meaning re-entry from the back, that's obviously not possible if you have a bag here. But in all cases, frankly, that's not easy if you're out in open waters with this kayak. So that's not the major problem. So yeah, you could have even more weight here. And of course, normally there would be an extra paddle out here as well. And then you have whatever you have in your PFD. And what we see on the top of the kayak here is the standard kind of gear that I tend to bring along for trips. So the bilge pump, in case you were to have to pump water out of your kayak, a paddle float to be able to re-enter if you have trouble getting back into the kayak, then this helps you stabilize by putting that on the paddle. And a bit of water, again some extra stuff there. I have a sponge to get small pieces, well, small amounts of water out of the kayak, and in this case also a tow rope in case one of us needs help getting, you know, forward for some reason. Then that's an extra bit of safety. And then of course a paddle leash for the paddle, and whatever is available on the PFD. So I think that's a bit of an overview, and thank you to Don Eric here who's filming, because now we're heading out to seawater actually, and we're gonna see that fortress over here in Vaxholm. So we're gonna have a few days, and actually Don Eric has invited me to come paddling in his area where he lives. So that's gonna be awesome. A few days here of Itiwit X500 paddling fun.
A couple of days of fun.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It will help others find the channel, and you will be updated on new upcoming videos. Stay safe and happy paddles!